So a product analysis is actually a really useful tool for us to try to identify some of those key elements that we might need to include in our product, or things we might even want to avoid. So it's just a really useful research method. Now, it should really be guided by your previous research. I would never start a project with a product analysis, but I would use it to inform research I'd already done. So let me give you some examples. If I've already identified my client and I want to design a product specifically for that client, then I might look at some products that that client already uses. And I'm going to be looking for what are the good things, what are the bad things, what things aren't quite as good as they could be. And so a lot of my focus will be based around the client's needs. Now, if I am trying to develop a product to solve a particular problem, then I might look at a whole range of existing products that are already trying to solve that problem. So a lot of similar products, and I might be thinking about how are they solving the problem, or what aren't they quite doing as well as they could. So the product analysis should really be informed by what you want to find out, rather than just randomly looking at lots of products, making a list of all these things, and then hoping for the best. It should be quite informed and focused. You should know what product is going to give you the answers you're looking for. So rather than just looking at a product, so let me take this, my son's nightlight, rather than just taking this product and sort of going, right, okay, it looks like Iron Man, it's got a bobblehead and it tells the time. It's a little bit more detailed than that. And one of the tools that we use is these acronyms. Now, there's two that I'm aware of. There's Access FM, which is aesthetics, cost, client, environment, size and shape, and then you've got function and materials. And then the other one, which I personally prefer, is CAFEQ, which is cost, aesthetic, function, ergonomics, quality, user, and environment. Okay. And if you're thinking about those headings and you analyze a product against those headings, then you're going to get a much better variety of information. It's going to help you look for things that you might not have thought to look for in the first place. Okay, so let's have a go with this one. So first of all, the cost. So this cost about £10. Now, why is cost important? Well, it's important because, one, it tells us what our client can afford, and therefore it tells us what we can afford to spend on the manufacturing process and the materials that we choose. Because if we decide to make this out of solid gold, because then it will last forever, my client can't afford it anymore. So we have to have an idea of the cost, because we have to then make compromises in the design process. We might have to make elements smaller, or use a different material, or use a slightly cheaper circuit board. So we always have to have that in mind, because if we end up making something that is really expensive to make, then we can't really sell it to our client. And at the end of the day, our client's going to buy this. We're not designing things for free, unless you are. The next thing is aesthetics. In other words, how does it look? What's its appearance? Now, this is clearly themed on Iron Man, but it's quite a novelty version of it. So it's quite cute. It's quite young looking. It's got a nice gloss to it. So it's not just Iron Man. It's some of those extra details. So this tells me the client's probably a bit younger and is probably interested in novelty themed objects. Also, you might not be able to pick it up, but it does actually glow when you push its head down, which is quite a nice little feature. So it can double up as a nightlight. But we'll come to that on the next one, which is function. So the function is it's an alarm clock, it tells the time, but it also doubles up as a nightlight because you press the head down and it can light up at nighttime. So that's the main function of this. It's a clock, it's a nightlight, it's a decorative feature, and they are the functions. In terms of ergonomics, this is all to do with the measurements to the human. In other words, is it easy for me to push the head down? It's very easy and it's very light. Now, if that was quite stiff, I had to put a lot of pressure on it. That's ergonomics. If the buttons on the back are a little bit too small to press and to operate, that's ergonomics. If it's nice, because when I press it in, you can just hear a little click. So I know that I've pressed it, and that's reassuring, and that is all ergonomics. So ergonomics is the measurements, so anthropometrics, and it's also how easy is it to use? How sort of comfortable is it? Is it understandable? Would you need an instruction manual to operate this, or can you just understand it because it's intuitive? So that's ergonomics. Quality, it's clearly very well made. It's got a little bit of a rattle to it, and it feels quite thin. I worry if this fell out the window, it would break. It feels quite brittle. However, it's my son's had this for years and years, and it hasn't broken or eroded or chipped away. So it's obviously got a long-lasting lifespan to it. Now, the user, again, is important because we need to get our client correct. This is for a younger child who's interested in comic books and themes, but an adult could have this. If you had an adult like me who's a total nerd, then I'd probably buy this as well. So the user could range from young to old. It's unisex. And then finally, the environment. So what impact does this have on the environment? And we'll cover this in more detail when we do life cycle assessments, but it's made from plastic and it has electronics in it. So plastic is a non-renewable source. It's a fossil fuel. It's made from crude oil. And at the end of its life, the circuits in it can't easily be recycled, if recycled at all. And it requires energy. It requires batteries that go in the back here. Batteries are horrendous. They're full of chemicals and toxics that pollute the earth. So there's a few bad things in this in terms of long-term environment. It would be better for the environment if it was made out of wood, if it had a natural light source, things like that. So what we do is I would describe all those things around it on those different headings, and then I would also do a little summary. So the summary would be, what have I actually learned? Well, what I've learned is that a nice plastic thin aesthetic can allow light to travel through, and that's quite cool. I've also learned that this kind of novelty Iron Man theme or superhero theme is quite appealing in terms of how it looks and how it operates to my client. And I've also figured out that the use of plastic isn't particularly good for the environment. Other things you could say is the pushing down the head to operate the light and having that spring to spring it back up is quite nice. And if I was going to design something similar, I might want to do something like that. So it's just a little summary box about the key bits that you've picked up on and that you might take into your own design or you might avoid. So the things that you found about it that are bad are just as important to talk about in your summary. Okay, so I hope that helps. And your task now is going to be to carry out a product analysis. All right, so good luck.